Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna do a video that I don't like filming, I don't like editing, but I love having on my channel. And that is a ranking of all of the books that I have read in 2023. I will do a separate reading stats video if you're more like a numbers person, but today we're gonna go through all of the books that I've read, and it has been 105. So we have a little bit of a journey ahead of us. And that means that I will not talk about all of these books in detail. I'm gonna talk about my worst 3 books, and I will talk about my favorite books, but in between I will just list them according to their ratings. And if you want to hear more about them, there is definitely a video somewhere on my channel where I talked about them, so you can go find that. So without further ado, here are all of the books I have read in 2023. We're starting out with the worst books, and I have not ranked them, they're just the 3 worst books. They're in no particular order. So the first one I have to mention is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. Now it does make me sad to call this one of the worst books I have read because this was a gift, or one of my friends gave this one to me. And the thing is that I just did not enjoy this book at all. In this one, we are following a man who dies at the beginning of the book, and then he meets 5 people who are supposed to show him what his purpose was, the purpose of his life, so he can move on from living, I guess. But the people he meets, the kind of messages that are baked into this book, they are so icky. First of all, he mostly meets men. When he doesn't meet men, it is about men or it is about the thing that happened to him, where he killed a child of color, and spoiler alert, the purpose of his life that they show him at the end was that was okay because in the end he saved a white child. Awesome message. Love that. No thank you. Then we have a German book. This one is called Die Nacht der Könige by Stefan Beuse. This is supposed to be kind of like a thriller mystery book. We are following this random dude who works in an advertising firm, and he meets this mysterious woman, and things are just weird for all of the book. Without any reason to it. So that was an interesting experience that gave me absolutely nothing. It was very icky. There is some like sexual content in here that was so icky, like consent, who is she? And then when it ended, I wasn't even sure whether it had all of the pages because I got this in a little free library and it looks like some pages could be missing, but then I tried to find out more about this book and it seems that that was the actual ending. So this was bad. This was bad, people. And last but not least, for my worst 3, we have The Hen's Worst Times. This is not a word that a German person should ever pronounce, by Sharon Dougal. Now this one is a book where we follow an Indian family, I think in the 80s in the UK. And as you can imagine, the 80s were a pretty shitty time in the UK. Like, if you know anything about UK history, that was not a great time to be an immigrant family or a working class family. So we're basically going through all the shit with these characters. And it starts off with the death of one of the sons of the family. He is run over by an ambulance, and that kind of lets the whole family spiral, and we're just watching that for a year or so. And there is so much like horrible stuff in here, but it has no purpose at all. It's just like, look at all of these horrible things that happen to people every day, and we just gonna have that happen to this one family so you can see how horrible the world is. And I don't need that. I don't need that. I'm depressed anyway. I don't need that. So those were the 3 worst books. I gave all of those 2 stars because I am kind-hearted, but honestly I would not recommend any of those. So just stay away. And now we will move on to the 2.5 star books. So with 2.5 stars we have Deutsche Heldensagen by Gretel and Wolfgang Hecht, Heimat deine Sünde by Horst Lapp. So 2 German books. Okay, next we have 3-star books. So those I still wouldn't necessarily recommend, but I think they're not offensive. We have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikatsu Kawaguchi. Die letzten Tage des Patriarchats by Margarete Stokowski. The Children of Húrin by J.R.R. Tolkien. I think this is edited by Christopher Tolkien. Gacha Gotcha by Vivek Shambhak. Sweet Cheese Home Volume 7 by Konami Kanata. Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. American Mermaid by Julia Langbein. The Turn of the Screw and Other Ghost Stories by Henry James. House of Roots and Ruin by Aaron A. Gregg. This is the 2nd book in the series. In the Shadow of Spindrift House by Mira Grant. The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an Introvert's Story by Debbie Tung. Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Saad. So next we have the 3.5 stars. So these are books that I would recommend, especially if they sound very interesting to you, but they just weren't very special to me. We're starting off with Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. The Silvered Serpents and the Bronzed Beasts by Roshani Chokshi, book 2 and 3 in this series. Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton. This is also the first in a series, but I will not continue. Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy. This was a reread. Siren Queen by Nevo. A Million to One by Adiba Jaigirdar. Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashadust. My Dearest Darkest by Kayla Cottingham. Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. 12 Nights at Rotherhouse by J.W. Oker. Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wobgeshe Rice. Chlorine by Jade Song. Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman and Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerizing Girl by Theodora Goss, book 2 and 3 in the series. Let Your Hearts Be Light by Faye Quinn. The 12 Days of Christmas by Poppy Alexander. Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson. Now we're into the biggest category, and that is 4 stars. So these books I would recommend, I really like them, but they just didn't have the special spark, you know? Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. Royal Assassin and Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is book 2 and 3 in that series. Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones. The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. This is book 1 in this series. The Light Fantastic by Terry Pratchett. This is book 2 in the series. Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. Assembly by Natasha Brown. A Dead Gin in Cairo by P. Jelly Clark. Bad Cree by Jessica Jones. Realm of Ash by Tasha Suri. This is the 2nd book in this duology. Sea Change by Gina Chung. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Speaking Bones by Ken Liu. This is the 4th book and the conclusion in this series. Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery. Bryony and Roses by T. Kingfisher. The Bone-Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is book 1 in this series. Blackout by Donielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Ashley Woodfolk, Angie Thomas, and Nicola Yoon. Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. The Bone-Shard Emperor and the Bone-Shard War by Andrea Stewart. This is book 2 and 3 in this series. Grave Secrets by Katie Reichs. This is book 5 in this series, I think. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. Radikale Zärtlichkeit by Sheda Kurt. The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. This is book 1 in this series. A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Our Last Echoes by Kate Ellis Marshall. This is a 2nd book in this series. Yellow Jessamine by Caitlin Starling. All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slatter. Foxglove by Adeline Grace. White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is the 1st book in this series and a reread. 3 Holidays and a Wedding by Usma Jalaluddin and Marissa Stapley. Whiteout by Donielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Al-Mortar and Max Gladstone. Now we're onto the 4.5 stars, so if you have not read these books, I would highly recommend them. Bitter by Akweke Emezi, this is a prequel in this series. Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, this is the first book in this series and it was a reread. Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, this is also kind of the first book in this series. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg. White Horse by Erica T. Worth. Fragen, die mir zum Holocaust gestellt werden by Hedi Fried. The Shadesetter of Janloon by Fonda Lee. This is a novella in this series. Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. Death du Jour by Katie Reichs. This is the second book in this series and it was a reread. Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Niveau. This is the first book in this series. Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukegawa. The Wall of Storms and the Whale's Throne by Ken Liu. This is book 2 and 3 in this series. Disability Visibility edited by Alice Wong. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Niveau. This is the second book in this series. Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second book in this series. God Killer by Hannah Kaner, the first book in the series. The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This was a reread. Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, here we are. We made it to my 10 5-star reads. And those I will talk about in a little bit more detail and I will also rank them. But first of all, I have 3 rereads on this list. So really, I just had 7 favorite books of the year, which, considering that I have read over 100 books, that seems very sad to me. I don't know what happened this year. I just wasn't lucking out with the 5 stars. So let me talk to you about the rereads and then we get into the top 7. My first 5-star reread was Pet by Akweke Emezi. I absolutely love this one and it is a YA book about a girl who lives in a world without monsters and we are looking at the situation of a monster coming back. Then we have Legendborn by Tracy Dion. Absolutely love this, and this is a dark academia book where we're following our main character called Bree, who goes to a early college kind of situation and gets sucked into a secret society that might also be connected to her mother's death. And then Fahrenheit 451, one of my absolute favorite classics. In this one we are looking at a world where firemen are burning books instead of putting out fires. And we have one of those who might think about it more. Okay, my top 7. We're starting with number 7 and that is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is in 7th place because I think it has least to do with my perspective on the world. It is a book about a black teenager who learns that I think his brother has been shot, or actually he sees it happen, and then he considers taking revenge. And while he is in the escalator going down from his apartment to do that, he meets some spirits, I would say. And this is written in verse. It was very beautiful and I think such an important topic, such an important read, and I would highly recommend if you haven't checked it out yet. On number 6 we have Warrior Girl Unearthed by Angeline Boulley. This one again is quite removed from my perspective on the world. This one is a mystery that focuses on a young girl. I forgot her name right now because I'm not great with names. but she is doing this summer internship. She's kind of forced into it, but she learns about the Repatriation Act and the struggle of Native American tribes trying to get back holy objects and remains of their ancestors from universities and museums and stuff like that. And so she really digs deep into this topic, and when she sees that the struggle doesn't really lead anywhere, that they're always pushed back against, she decides to plan a heist. On number 5, we have Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This is the second book by this author I've read. I've also read Everything I Never Told You, and the writing of this author just works so well for me. This is also a TV show which I have not watched yet, but we are following two families that are kind of growing together. They have many connections, but there's also dark secrets lurking, and we are looking at this very close relationship of these two families and how it might fall apart. On number 4, we have Loglands by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the third book and the finale in the Founders trilogy. So in this one we are following a world where the magic is inscribed into objects, and we have these very wealthy people who live behind walls, and we're following one of these poor people, and she has a special ability. She's a thief, and she can sense other magical objects, like objects with those inscriptions. And she steals something that she shouldn't have stolen because it's very, very dangerous. And this finale was just so good. I felt like the series just kept building up and getting better and better. And the kind of like society we get at the end of the series, this like idea that it's playing with, was so creative. I cried my eyes out at the end. It was so good. I loved it. On number 3, we have Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn, and this is the second book in this series, and I really enjoyed it. It is quite different from the first one, but I still had so much fun with it. I think it's one of the most fun and interesting YA series that is currently ongoing, and I can't wait for the sequel to this. So I already said what this is about, but in this one we're kind of leaving the school setting behind, and we're learning more about the world behind this secret society. We also have more of a road trippy feeling to some of this, and just the tension with these characters was really good. On number 2, we have a classic, and that is Passing by Nella Larsen. This is a book that was written in the 1920s during the Harlem Renaissance, and we are looking at a woman who is white passing. And this is such a weird story. I could not predict where it was going, and I just had such a great reading experience because I read this all in one day and then even watched the movie adaptation of it as well. And so it was just so fun to read, but also the writing was so beautiful. I love this kind of affectation that you get with the 20s, and yeah, I think that this topic of white passing is just so interesting to me because it really shows the social construction of concepts such as race. Because if there are people who can pass across this line, it has to be made up, right? So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I would highly recommend. And then my best book of the year, if you have kind of been following, you know which one it is. And it is just one of the best fantasy books I've read in a long time. This is what I think fantasy should be like for me. So without further ado, my number 1 book of the year is The Craze of Kings by Ken Liu. This was just so perfect. I loved this so much. And even though the series went kind of downhill a little bit for me, this first book is still perfection. This is also kind of a prequel, so you can read this as a standalone, and if you want to know what happens after the kind of happy ending we get in here, then you can read the other 3 books, but those you will have to read together because they have like one big arc, whereas this one is kind of contained within itself. I love this so much. We are following this kind of empire as it is falling apart and maybe rebuilding itself. And this book has also some discussions on leadership and what a good leader would be like. Can a king or an emperor be a good leader? And is, you know, an empire a good idea if it depends on the person leading it to be a good person? So there's so much in here, which sounds quite philosophical, but at the same time, it is just such a great story. It has fascinating characters, and the world that is created here is so fun as well. I cannot recommend this highly enough. I hope you pick it up. Look at this cover. It's so gorgeous. You need to read this if you're a fantasy reader. And that's it. That's my favorite book. So that concludes our little ranking. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what your favorite book of 2023 was. I would love to hear about that. But you can also let me know what the worst book was that you've read. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye!